everybody. I'm John Norris, and welcome to Point Blank. This is part of MTV's year-long campaign, Fight for Your Rights, Take a Stand Against Violence. Now, today we're going to be talking about guns, something that's obviously on the minds of a lot of people, particularly these days. And you know, from Jesse James to Al Capone to John Wayne to Rambo, guns have definitely played a starring role in the story of America. But is that a bad thing? Well, that pretty much depends on who you ask. But in recent days, there has been, of course, a fierce debate in this country over gun control. We're going to address a variety of issues surrounding guns and try to identify some possible solutions today. And in just a bit, I'll explain to you guys here in the studio how we're going to do it. It involves kind of a unique scenario and role-playing on the part of our panel. Quite a panel we've assembled today. I want to introduce you to these people, some of whom you'll recognize, I think. Starting off with Jim Fotis. Jim is Executive Director of the Law Enforcement Alliance of America, an organization made up of police officers who support gun rights. Next to Jim, a woman I'm sure most of you recognize, Lisa Left Eye Lopez from TLC. Welcome, Lisa. Also, Chris Carley, next to her, a student and actor from New York University. A couple of guys also that I'm sure you'll recognize. Nick Lachey from 98 Degrees is with us today, as well as the one and only John Popper from Blues Traveler.
Howdy.
We're also joined by Dan Gross. Dan is Executive Director of the anti-violence group PAX. I should also mention that Dan's brother Matthew was critically wounded in the 1997 shooting on top of the Empire State Building. And finally, David Kennedy. David joins us from Harvard's John F. Kennedy School of Government. Thanks to all of you guys for being here with us. As I said, we'll get to the panel.
There are 18-year-olds that certainly would be able to handle a firearm that have been brought up with firearms.
Right. All right, Nick, you are Dave's roommate. You guys have, in fact, the second year you were rooming together. You guys were roommates in the dorms the first year. Now you've got an apartment off campus. And you guys gotten along fine up to now, no problems, basically. And you've heard about what happened to his friend. You know he's thinking about getting a gun. Talk about how you feel about the idea of getting a gun as well as having one there in the apartment with you guys.
Well, I tell you, man, I heard that you're thinking about getting a gun, and I know the anxiety you have coming home from work every night, and I can identify with that. I was in a similar job before, but I got to tell you, man, I'm a little nervous about being in a situation, an apartment with a firearm around. You know, there's just too many factors, man. We got people in the house all the time. You know, people coming over. You know, say we have a party, man, and somebody gets a hold of it and is a little out of line and something happens, you know, that's on you. That's your responsibility, and that's something that we both gotta deal with living together.
But
so.
David, I think you know safe storage, you said, and you certainly don't have to worry about a firearm if it's locked up somewhere, if you have a safe, if you have some way to put it away and make sure that you have control of that firearm at all times.
I mean, although, like, if that's the only way that you would allow a gun in the house for it to be locked up, then I guess that's the only way that we could have it. But to me, it's kind of useless to have a gun if you have to sort of run to a safe, unlock it, get the gun out, run downstairs, get the bullets in the other cabinet, and load. I mean, by that time, when you need a gun, as far as, I mean...
You'd rather be floating in some mysterious cloud right in front of you, ready to go.
I mean, say you got
that situation will never happen.
Say you got it in the closet, you know, and say we got people over, we're watching the game or whatever.
Well, it would be locked up. I mean, it would be locked up if we had people in our room. I mean,
is there room for compromise there, Nick?
Yeah.
If he agreed to have it locked up, or
yeah, I think if you had it, I mean, it's not that I don't trust you with it. It's the X factor of someone else getting a hold of it who's not as responsible, who hasn't been trained like you have. And but I could compromise on that if you. It
would be cool if it was locked up.
Yeah, I think David's dad said he has a lot of experience handling a gun, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break now. We've heard some opinions. Obviously, some of the people in Dave's life are concerned about the idea of his getting a gun, including his dad and his roommate. But they're not the only ones who have a say, of course. There are other people, including Dave's girlfriend. We're going to check in with her, see how she feels about his desire to get a gun right after the break. Hang out.
Feel that way.
And as his roommate, you know, my only concern in the beginning was that the X factor, and you know, I think it does have to be your responsibility. There were people that came to this party, and you know, and maybe some people were drinking, and it's hard to hold someone who wasn't necessarily in their right frame of mind responsible when they didn't know the firearm was there. You know what I mean? Until they were already in that situation. And,
all right, guys, want to go to break one more time. When we come back, obviously, Dave has heard a lot. A lot's happened to him as well as some of the people around him since we first met him at Big City University. When we return, we're going to try and make some sense of owning a gun, wanted to get a gun for a reason that may not have anything to do with real protection.
No, not really. I don't think too much. I think that the situations I've encountered in my life where I knew people who had guns were because they were introduced to them kind of by force. And a friend of mine was in a fight, and a guy pulled a gun on him, didn't fire it, obviously, but I think that kind of, in his mind, raised the stakes, and he felt like in order to match that, he had to go get a gun, you know. And so I think that was the situation he was in. I think that's the situation, obviously, that we were talking about, and a situation that a lot of people encounter. I'm sure there are people who have weapons for status, guns for status. It makes them feel, like Lisa said, makes them feel powerful, makes them feel like nobody can mess with them. But I haven't personally run into that at all.
John, I don't know to what extent, as a kid, you had